It always really stinks when you grow up, and I didn't necessarily grow up watching Pete Rose play baseball, but it really stinks when one of the biggest pioneers of a sport, one of the greatest players of the sport, in any sport, a sport that you may love, a sport that I may love, which actually I do. MLB postseason's right around the corner, but it really stinks that Pete Rose has died. I understand that Pete Rose has done some things and did some things that a lot of people frown upon, or some people think that it's not that big of a deal that he bet on games. It is a big deal that he bet on his own team's games. Let's not act like it's not. Didn't stop everything that he did on the diamond at all. Not remotely close did it stop Pete Rose from having the most hits in baseball's history. And it really stinks that he has died at the age of 83, I believe. I very much hate that for him and his family and everybody that loved Pete Rose. I would assume that the city of Cincinnati, the state of Ohio, are in mourning behind this. I know a lot of people wanted to see Pete Rose getting to the Hall of Fame. I wish that he could have been alive to see the day that maybe he will be able to do it if they ever allow him to be in here. You're not here to listen to me talk about Pete Rose, though. We got lots of LSU content that we must get to. LSU's in a bye week, and everybody truly believes and feels and wants to say to themselves, oh, it is what it is. We got a long 2 weeks and a lot of things that you and I just have to discuss about LSU. Things that we're going to talk about tonight. What is LSU through 5 games? Because when I look at LSU through 5 games, I see a team that, as the season has now started to unfold, maybe you can beat Ole Miss at home. Maybe they're not the big, bad, scary wolf. However, does Ole Miss have a game like they did this past Saturday? Are you good enough defensively to do that against Ole Miss? Who knows, like what Kentucky did. We'll talk about that. We'll talk to our good friend Carter Bryant, who is going to join us at 7:35 Central Standard Time, always on Mondays. Good and glad to have Carter here to join us. I'm going to ask him that question. What does he think about LSU through the first 5 weeks of the season and then going into a bye week? Where do we see LSU going into the season? The God's honest question, now that we have a season that is starting to unfold, what do we make of them? We'll also recap a little bit of LSU versus South Alabama. And I'll give you a hot take and a bold prediction for LSU after Carter leaves us. So lots of things that we got to get into, lots of things that we have to discuss. Nevertheless, let's get to a couple of your comments here. Nola P on YouTube says, rest in peace, Charlie Hustle. No doubt, man. Ryan says the same. No doubt. No doubt. Stephen Young says, pray for Eastern North Carolina. Man, those people are isolated and suffering without water, food, electricity, and fuel. Let's have compassion for our fellow humans. Cajun Navy already up there helping. Yeah, man, listen. North Carolina, the Appalachia, those people are going through it. Look, man, I can't say that I've ever gone and been in a situation like they have been. Now, have lived through Katrina, where the eye wall goes through the parish that I'm currently was residing in. Hurricane Ida, I know what those people have gone through. I think about our good buddy Chris Phillips with SEC Unfiltered. He, where he is. Guys, Hurricane Helene really hurt a lot of people, and we're praying for all those in North Carolina, the Appalachians. Boone, North Carolina has really been hit hard. So we're praying for all of those people up there. But Stephen Young is 100% right. 100% right. Spectrum Wellcare says Kentucky's D-line is legit. They are. And they absolutely punched Ole Miss in the mouth. Without a doubt. Without a doubt. Debbie just says she's in the 225 Baton Rouge, Louisiana. Daniel Allen's in the 337. Shannon is also in BR, the 225. Raceland in the building, says Kevin. The 985 in the building. Wayland's in the 337. Good to have you all here with us. Yeah, where are you listening from tonight? Where are all of you listening to us from tonight. Before we get rolling into that, I just need to mention every show is brought to you by our good friends over at betonline.ag, the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for everything football. BetOnline has every stat, matchup, live odds, spreads, betting during the game. Anything you need to do, you need to go over to betonline.ag. You know your stuff? They have a 200,000 mega contest that there, if you pick 5 games against the spread every week, you'll have your chance to win $200,000. BetOnline.ag, where the game starts. And I want to bring in one of our good friends here, Cheribundi. Now, for all of those of you that work out, you need to get you some Cheribundi. Just throwing it out there. I love these things, man. Pure tart cherry, natural products and ingredients, no added sugar. Tart cherries have the highest antioxidant fruit or vegetable in the world. Listen, for all of you that work out and are very active, you need to get to Cheribundi. Reduces soreness, increased recovery, helps support immunity. And you know how I know that? Because nearly 500 collegiate and professional sports teams use Cheribundi. Think about this. 10 of the last Super Bowl champions have used Cheribundi, and 66 of the 67 Power 4 conference teams use Cheribundi when they go and work out. They take it at night for recovery from the workout. Their products are on Amazon. You can go over to cheribundi.com or retailers nationwide that include Publix and Kroger. Go over to Cheribundi. Let them know that your good friends at AYS and Blake Ruffino sent you on by. All right. Daniel Allen with some stars on Facebook. Thank you so much for doing that. He also says he's in Lake Charles. Please let the Tigers peak at the right time. We're actually going to talk about that here tonight. Can they? Are they a legit football team? Can they be that borderline fringe playoff team that a lot of you want them to be? We'll find out. Chris Kimball is in the 662. Good to have you in here with us. And Brandon Reese is in enemy territory. He says Tuscaloosa, Alabama, which reminds me. A little bit of a soft launch, pause, but a little bit of a soft launch. We have launched an SEC channel on YouTube. So we're going to not be going live there, just putting up clips, interviews, all that kind of stuff, all the things that you need for around your SEC. I'm going to say this. I very much hope that you go over to AYS Sports-SEC on YouTube, subscribe. We're going to be putting a lot of content. We got 3 interviews lined up for this week from teams and from other teams and other people that cover other teams, I should say, from around the SEC. AYS Sports-SEC is where you can find that content. And yeah, we put on 2 videos today that talked about Tuscaloosa, or talked about the guys in Tuscaloosa. And Jalen Milroe might be the best player in college football. Any Cheribundi, any relation to Al? No, this is them right here, man. So Cheribundi, our good friends, I showed you this product earlier. And guys, I'm telling you, you got to get over to them, man. You got to get over to them. 66 of the 67 Power 4 conference teams use Cheribundi. Every NCAA football and basketball national champion has used Cheribundi since 2007. It's one of the best recoveries that you will have. So you need to go over there. I'm telling you, look, some of you know this. I've lost about 65 to 68 pounds, depending on the day. It's a good recovery from a workout, man. I'm telling you, y'all need to get over to Cheribundi. All right. Anthony says, I loved your interview with Josh Pate. Yeah, Josh is a great friend of the show. Glad that we were able to bring him in on Ruffino and Joe show. All right, let's get rolling. Everybody do us a favor. Hit the like and share. If you're on Facebook, like button, share to all those groups, to all those social media pages. You're watching us, listening to us on YouTube. Like, subscribe, notification bell. Wherever you listen to podcasts, do us a favor by rating, reviewing, subscribing, and go over to AYS Sports SEC on YouTube as well. Let's do this. Let's take a quick break. We're going to come back, and we're going to break down LSU, where I think that they stand. We'll recap some South Alabama. Carter Bryant joins us in about 20 minutes. Stay with us. We got lots to get into. BetOnline is the fastest and easiest way for you to wager on all of your favorite sports, contests, events, with the first-to-market odds and lines. Find reviews for all the news for each league, including Major League Baseball, NFL, NBA, NHL, combat sports, college sports, esports, and even golf. BetOnline continues to be the top online resource for all of your sports information for live in-game betting, props, and futures. Head on over to BetOnline today and use your mobile device to join and make your first sports bet. Use our promo code BELIEVE50, that's BELIEVE50, BLEAV 50, to receive your 50% off welcome bonus on your first deposit. That's betonline.ag, betonline.ag.
He will sell your house and find you a new. Well, Tyler's the man, he's here for you. If you want to buy or sell, well, it's not too late. Dial 955-0008. Just call 955-0008. Y'all call Tyler, he'll shoot you straight.
Louisiana is unique. The food, the festivals, even the bugs. No, not mud bugs. Unwanted bugs like these. The ones you don't want crawling in your home or business. Trust the Shield from J&J Exterminating. We've been protecting Louisiana homes for over 50 years, earning the trust of our clients because we deliver what we promise. Protect your home from pests. Get the Shield from J&J Exterminating.
J&J Exterminating. Yeah.
J&J has protected Louisiana homes and businesses for over 60 years.
Call him today, make the pests go away. J&J Exterminating. Yeah.
All right. Let's get to it. So, look, I don't want to spend a hell of a lot of time on recapping the South Alabama game. I think that it will lead to, and we're going to do it with Carter anyway, but I just want to run through a couple of things that in LSU's last game that I think are very big. Now, what a lot of you heard in the postgame show was pretty simple. You thought that I was saying that Garrett Nussmeier had a really bad game. That never came out of my mouth, nor was even close to being in the realm of intentional of what was being said. What I did say, however, and if you go back and watch the game, and Brian Kelly addressed this on the Paul Feinbaum show today, of when Garrett Nussmeier threw 2 interceptions, that he's glad that he has the relationship with Garrett the way that he does, that he can get onto him in making bad and poor decisions. I said this in the post-game show. I'm going to kind of elaborate because I don't think it's very rated G or PG to say on what I said on the post-game. But I really do believe that this offense has a potential to take a massive step. Like I see a lot of people writing and throwing things out there. Look at this throw. Look at that throw. Look at this. Look at that. Guys, it's not going to get you where you want to go. They're not playing at a place right now that's going to get you where you want to go. You know, I look at Alabama this weekend, man. I don't know if they're not the best team in the country. Like, they haven't taken the step back that a lot of us, or some of you, thought that they were going to take. Those interceptions against South Carolina, those interceptions against South Alabama, the interception, even though it's late in the game, against USC, is not beneficial to where you need to go. You can't do that against teams from the bye week that you're on now to where you're going to be at the end of the season when you play Oklahoma. It can't happen. I think you're on the cusp of doing something spectacular. I think your running game is starting to get moving. I think the wide receivers in Nussmeier are getting a little bit more comfortable, even though I do think that they need, and the film would show, that they got to get C.J. Daniels more involved in this offense. Guys, there's multiple times that C.J. Daniels, who, you know, it looked like he kind of got nicked up on a play, and now he goes into a bye week. We'll see. They got to get number 4 involved and stop forcing the ball in certain situations to Kyron Lacey. But when I look back at the South Alabama game, for the first half, I loved it. You know, you were the opposite of Georgia in a lot of ways. We talked about Alabama that was on your schedule. You were the opposite of what we saw with Georgia. The first half that you had was as impressive as you can have it. That was as impressive as a half as I've seen in the Brian Kelly area against any team. It's the way that you didn't finish. And we talk so much about going into this game, having a 4-quarter game. You know, Stephen Young, who I think is in here, he commented earlier. He called into the postgame show and said, Blake, I everything that you put in your keys to victory or things that you wanted to see from LSU this week, they did. You know, Stephen, I got to thinking about it when we're rewatching the film or watching the film last night. I think about this, not everything, because I wanted them to play a 4-quarter game. I went back and read my notes. They didn't. Because you got to find ways, you have to find ways to be able to finish football games. Now, with that being said, guys, I think defensively you started to get a lot better. I love LSU in this star role. Whether Major Burns is on the field or not or whatever he's doing, I got to say this, man, that role for him has paid off. Had another good game. Now, people will look at him and him giving up a slot fade route. Oh, Blake, he got burned. Well, I'm just going to throw this out to you as a news flash. Most safeties do. Most safeties do get beat by slot receivers when they're running fade routes. That's why you don't have many of them that are in that position, and you put him in that position. Guys, you've given up under 150 rushing yards the last 2 weeks. Now, I know it's against inferior opponents and not really good opponents, and you're going to face better teams. Hell, you're going to face a better team in 2 weeks, regardless of them losing to Kentucky or not. But if I would have told you in the beginning of the season, like we talked about on the postgame, that you'll have a defense that's hovering around the 50% mark or around 50 in total defense, that you would have the turnovers that you had, that you would have 2 games in the first 5 weeks, 2 of those games that, well, you didn't give over 150 rushing yards in those games. You would have taken that. You would have been like, well, Bo Davis has got this, and Kevin Peoples has got this defensive line moving. But something's really interesting about this team. You've played really good opponents that nobody wants to give you credit for, and one of them you won, the other one you didn't. We'll find out a lot about South Carolina this week, even though I think we found out a lot about them and the way that they handled Kentucky. Because South Carolina's secondary, they're 23rd in the country in passing yards allowed. That's a really good secondary. Southern Cal, USC, they're tied for 15th in passing yards allowed. And you did some really good things. Did you get stalled at times? Yes. But you got to find a way to play 4 quarters against inferior opponents and good opponents. If you don't, you're going to get beat. One last thing on the offense before we look at what LSU can be. I do truly feel that this running game has gotten a lot better since the second half of South Carolina. You know, ever since Kaden Durham has come into the game and been a vocal point of this offense, guys, you found your first running back. Now, I know he got a little nicked up. They put him back in the game after he came up limping, but they took him out, brought him back. They were keeping him out for precaution. The game was well in hand so that they could do that. You got to keep playing 29, man, freshman or not. That kid can really play. The simple nature against any opponent that young man had damn near 200 yards in the first half or over 200 yards in the first half is why he is special. You know, man, I'm starting to think that you have hit on a lot of these freshmen, none bigger than him. That kid is impressive. He's explosive. He can catch the ball out of the backfield. Guys, he has 2 catches, 2 receiving touchdowns the last 2 weeks. He got one against UCLA. The first play of the game this past week, he got one against South Alabama. You're going to have to continue to feed him in the passing game, not only in running the football. If you continue to get better there and give Nussmeier some easy throws and getting playmakers the ball out in space, it's going to benefit you. It's going to behoove you. How does Kaden Durham look in 2 weeks against an Ole Miss team that does have some really good athletes on defense? We will see. Let's look at defense and recap that game just very quickly. Look, man, you gave up 10 points. You've given up 27 points the last 2 weeks. I don't know, man. I think that they are better than what I would have anticipated them being. If, again, guys, rewatching that game, they did a lot of really good things on their D-line, man. They played a lot of freshmen. They played a lot of young guys. Gabe Relaford, Ahmad Bro were in the game on the same side of the defensive line. Guys, that's 2 true freshmen that are locking it and holding it down. I think that they've been impressive. I think that they've been good. Now, do things need to get fixed in the secondary, at safety specifically? Yes. Guys, I do think that you're a pair of safeties clicking or a pair of safeties away with Blake Baker, that you might see some really good things from what Brian Kelly is building with this staff defensively. Guys, you're 44th in the country in rushing defense. You played 2 really good rushing attacks that we've seen. You know, USC, as much as people don't want to give him credit for, Woody Marks at 105 rushing yards against a really good defense in Michigan. Didn't do that against you. South Carolina can really run the football. Guys, they're top 25 in rushing offense this year. So I think that you have shown that you have talent in other places. But what was my biggest concern going into the South Alabama game for this defense is that teams were going to scheme up Braden Swinson. And boy, did they. That young man had more chip blocks on him, had more things shaded to him. With the absence of Harold Perkins, I really do believe that teams are going to start scheming around number 4. And it's going to be beneficial for Weeks. And the linebackers had a fantastic game against a really good running attack. Really good running attack against South Alabama. It's going to be really encompassing for a team like, for a player like Whit Weeks to get going. Because everything that, from a passing game standpoint, that South Alabama did against LSU was they weren't going to let number 4 going to beat him. They weren't going to allow that to happen. You got 2 weeks to scheme up against Ole Miss to get that man out in space and do some really good things. It's up to you to make sure that happens. Okay. Let me get to this. What is the perception and reality that we have for LSU now that we're going into week 6, into the bye week? You know, look, you're coming out of the bye week. You're 4-1. You had a slip up in game 1 against USC. You got a really good win against probably what is a really good South Carolina team. Is this team on the fringe of making a playoff? You know, Ole Miss lost to Kentucky this weekend, which everybody and their mama is talking about because the top 10 team got beat by a team that hadn't scored an offensive touchdown against a P4 opponent until they played them. But a lot of you feel like, hey, now there's a light in that tunnel that even though we've seen LSU at times and moments be bad, there's a light in the tunnel where if you take care of the business that you need to take care of with the schedule that you have, the likelihood and scenario is, man, there's a chance that you can be one of those teams at the end of the season that's fighting for a spot. Now, that doesn't stop that I still do believe that Ole Miss is a good football team. I do. That loss to Kentucky has not swayed me completely on how good of a football team that I think that they can be. Lane does not have many games where he gets shut down offensively, and I don't know if you can replicate what Kentucky did. Because that game looks like one that you have the ability, not saying that you will, but you have that ability to win that football game. What is Arkansas? What is A&M? You know, I think Arkansas is one of the better offenses, ironically, because of the way that they run the football. But if you make Taylor Green sit back in the pocket and throw the ball on you, you're going to win the football game. Hand to God, you're going to win the football game. Is that a tough road environment? Yeah, it's going to be. That's their Super Bowl, man. They want to beat you as bad as anything. It's more of a rivalry game to them than it is to us. They hate our guts, and we could care less about them. They're going to give you and throw everything that they have at you. But it's a winnable football game. I say all that to say this too. This team has been so up and down that even though I think that they have the ability and they have the chance that they can do something very special and very good, the question that comes down to it is, can they accomplish that? Because the team that I've seen this year shows me that they might not be able to accomplish that. You know, I look at things against South Carolina. I look at things against UCLA. I look at things like the second half against South Alabama that I don't like. That makes me have massive pause, not the pause that you and I normally use on this show, but it gives me massive pause to what this team can do. Do I think you're good enough offensively where you can be a 10-win regular season team? Yeah, I do. Do I think that you're good enough to be a 10-win team defensively? Are you doing enough good things defensively? Are you a good enough team defensively to where you can be on that fringe of a borderline team? Yeah, you are, and you have. You have not played a complete game. You've taken the pedal off the metal and made dumb and bad decisions in critical moments when you could have done something really good. The turnovers that you're getting or the turnovers that you're having scare me. Not being able to score off of getting turnovers defensively scares me. I think it's the biggest issue that you have at the current moment. Not being able to score when you get turnovers. 6 points on 6 turnovers is horrible. It outright horrible. But then I see flashes of what you did in the first half and think, oh, shiesty. As Goldfinger from Austin Powers would say, Faja. I really believe that you could be on the cusp and you have the ability to do something special. You've just given me no hope. Zero hope, sir, that you will accomplish what you need to accomplish. Guys, I think that you can and should beat Ole Miss. I think you can and should beat Arkansas. I think you can and should beat A&M. I think you can and should beat Florida. I think you can and should beat Oklahoma. The only game that I look at and say to myself, well, you know what, man? I don't know if you can beat Alabama. I don't think you're that talented. At least you haven't shown me that you are. Not in certain areas you haven't. And I ask myself this question. Do I think you can? Like Thomas the Tank Engine? Yes. Have you shown me it? No, yet. All right. Let's get to a couple super chats here. Brian Pinton with a $2 super chat says, I know this ain't a LSU topic, but rest in peace to Pete Rose. Yeah, we started off the show. Rest in peace to one of the greats, man. Charlie Hustle. Rest in peace to him. I really, really hate that for him. I really, 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 really hate that for him. Stinks. Matthew Conkle with a $2 super chat says, give me more slot fades, damn it. So, look, it's what Jordan Allen got beat on against South Alabama. It's what Major Burns got beat on against South Alabama. It's what you have beaten a lot of teams on. You have not. I'm sure that there's been one that I'm not thinking of. Oh, the Aaron Anderson slot fade you connected on. Didn't go for a touchdown, but it was a good play against UCLA. Guys, you had two. Your safety play is horrible. So if you're going to run that star position and you're going to go man-to-man coverage or too high, and you're going to run man behind it, Major Burns isn't going to be the guy that can do that for you. Guys, Lane Kiffin is going to target number 8 like he did last year. It's up to Blake Baker with 2 weeks to prepare to be able to put him in conducive situations. Blitz him, let him come off the flat. Blitz him or let him go in the flat. Can't let that man be in man-on-man coverage. It just can't happen. Stephen Young with a $5 super chat says, Kaden Durham changes our offense. His run threat opens up a lot of more options that we didn't have earlier in the season. I agree. I think, Stephen, his pass catching ability, I mean, look, I would love to know this. This is a stat that maybe Carter Bryant knows when we have him on in just a quick second. When is the last time that a running back, or who is the last running back to have consecutive games with a receiving touchdown? That's a stat. That's a trivia question for your rear end. Somebody tell me inside the chat. I think Paul's Hub would know. If Paul's Hub is around, who is the last LSU running back to have back-to-back receiving touchdowns in back-to-back games? Kid's dynamic, man. He is as dynamic and space eating as a Rubik's Cube. He is. He is. A lot of people says it's got to be Clyde. Maybe it is. I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. I don't know the answer to that. C. Hardy with a $3 super chat says, Ole Miss is -9 versus South Carolina this week. I don't see it. Well, I'm going to say this. Thank you, C. Hardy, for the super chat. Here's what I'd say. Vegas is about making money. They don't have opinion. Like, they're trying to make money. Their algorithm says that game's -9. Now, I'm a little with you. I don't know if I see it either. What did they see that we don't? What do they see that we don't? Is the ultimate question. So it's a good point. It's a good point. There he is. Clyde Edwards-Helaire only had one receiving touchdown in 2019. Was that Bama? The corner route that he ran from the running back position from Joe Burrow that put you up 20 against Alabama? That's a good question. We'll ask him next. All right, let's do this. Let me get to a quick break. We'll come back right back. Carter, the Power Bryant, joins us. Stay with us. Guys, I want to talk to you about our good friends over the Drake Williams Law Firm and Drake Title Company. Are you facing tough times due to an injury from a car accident, navigating the complexities of divorce, or purchasing a new home? At the Drake Williams Law Firm and Drake Title Company, they understand the challenges you're going through, and they are here to help. The lawyer team of Ernie Drake III, Ryan J. Williams, and Summer Vignair, along with Morgan Daniels, have the experience and proven track record to give you that peace of mind. Give them a call today at 985-386-7600. That's 985-386-7600 to schedule a free consultation at their brand new office located in historic downtown Ponchatoula. They're also doing a special, the AYS special. If you're refinancing or closing on a home in Southeast Louisiana, request the Drake Title Company to handle your closing. If you mention Blake Ruffino and AYS, you're going to receive a $400 discount on title fees. Again, give them a call at 985-386-7600. Let them know that Blake Ruffino sent you on by. Guys, you might know my good friend Carol Falls and all the great service that he provides over at State Farm. He is your good neighbor after all. But did you know State Farm has surprisingly great rates as well? Along with the great neighbor service, State Farm agent Carol Falls has surprisingly great rates for everyone inside the state of Louisiana. So call him today at 985-395-4300, 985-395-4300 for all of those surprisingly great rates on auto, home, and life insurance needs. Like a good neighbor, State Farm is there, and individual premiums will vary by customer. All applicants subject to the State Farm underwriting requirements. Guys, let me tell you about our good friends over at Easy Free Bail Bonds, LLC, where they get your feet back on the street. There may come a time where a loved one or yourself is arrested and you don't have enough money to get bail from jail. Easy Free Bail Bonds will assist you in the process of getting bail bonds for your family. These bonds are a way to ensure that you're financially covered when a predicament like an arrest occurs. Easy Free Bail Bonds is located inside the state of Louisiana with an expert team of bondsmen that are available to assist you or your family 24/7. The team is professional and has a high-quality work ethic that will give you nothing but satisfaction. The company takes feedback from past customers in order to better their services and are always looking to accommodate and mold their services that best fit your needs. Remember this number, 985-517-3631. That's 985-517-3631. Because when you need to get back on your feet and back on the street, you know who to call. Carter, the Power Bryant. Good evening, good sir. How are you? What?
R.I.P. Matumbo, baby.
Oh,
Kimbe. I saw you shout out Pete Rose.
I forgot about that.
I mean, we're talking about two legends, one of ones, all-time greats.
Yeah, him and Pete Rose on the same day. That's it. That's freaking sad, Carter.
Oh, it's insane. Like, it really is insane. Like, Dikembe's probably the funniest NBA player ever.
Mm-hmm.
He was so great in commercials. I know a few comics that have like funny stories interacting with him at just random places. Yeah, a writer for ABC had a very funny story about an airport today. So that was great. But believe it or not, so the question was, and normally I'm not like Todd Pollitt's level when it comes to these kind of things. You said the last LSU running back with back-to-back receiving touchdown games.
Yes.
All right. So
I know who it is. I figured it out during the break.
Okay. On the count of three, we will say his name. All right.
One, two, three.
Kaden
Durham.
Emery. It was John.
It's Kaden Durham because he was the technical last person to do it because he just did it.
Well, please go jump into an erupting volcano. I actually do think it was John Emery. I think it was. Now, it would have to be back-to-back games. So he didn't have a whole lot of
So people watching this on YouTube that didn't see it live, my question before Carter came on here was, who was the last running back to have back-to-back games with a receiving touchdown? But you think it's John Emery.
Yes. So I think because, John didn't like score a whole lot. Well, it just comes down to 2022. Now, I know okay.
He had one against Bama.
Yes, and then he had one. It wasn't the previous week, but there was a bye week. I think he had one on the road versus Florida. Or was that called back for penalty? I don't know. I think
no, you're right. It was the first touchdown. Remember, Jaden threw it to him. You might be right.
So someone please go look it up because I like throwing John Emery some love because we would be a lot better football team if he was still.
Maybe Brian Kelly does get his playmakers the football in space.
Maybe I think it was John. But
yeah, that's a very good pull by you. That's what she said. All right, let's get to this open-ended question because look, I don't know what to make of South Alabama, but I leave it open-ended to you. Let's start with the offense. How did you think the offense looked against South Alabama last week?
Yeah, I thought, as great as Kaden Durham was, I thought my highest graded player was Garrett Dellinger. I mean, he really played unbelievably well. And normally these kinds of things kind of, play itself out. But I did see people who know more about football than me tweeting out Garrett Dellinger clips. And what makes that impressive is he's not.
Yeah, I think it was Kublik today that pointed him out a lot. Yeah.
I think it was Cube. And I think someone else kind of randomly pointed him out, and I think his NFL draft stock is shooting up quite a bit. He really popped for me in this last game. Once again, it's South Alabama, but
with it is really small D line too. And I'm not trying to take anything away from him, but
yeah. So I do want to show him Deli some love, but I mean, Kaden Durham's a story. I mean, the guy was truly spectacular in this game, just dusting people. I don't even think he's running at full speed. And he's just special. And the thing that's interesting, Blake, is you were really high on Kaden Durham. I was too. He was my number one rated player with Deshaun Spears. It had the same grade for me coming into this class. The thing that really concerned me about him going into this year is that, when he played in Texas, he would just one cut and just dust everybody. Like, it was insane. But what's really impressive is he's good at like all these little nuances of running back play, getting skinny through the hole, making your offensive line look a lot better. So much was made of Miles Frazier falling on his ankle into the end zone. Small defensive line be damned, Blake. As you know from watching that play, there was a missed assignment where a DT had a chance to make a play, and DJ Chester was in the backfield, and it was like those two mammoth human beings weren't even there. I mean, it was just one little jump cut. Then he was able to get vertical, get skinny in the hole. And those kinds of things you really didn't see from him in high school because there was just so many 70 and 80-yard runs. So the fact that he is so good at these little things, like you saw in the South Carolina game, a lot of goal line runs, a lot of his best runs in that game.
Vision's really good. That's his best attribute, in my opinion, is vision.
Yes, and I did not expect that. I thought he would be a very explosive, dominant player. Once again, I thought he was the best player in the class. But the fact that he is so good at these little things right out of the gate lets you know that, he's got, to use the best example, this Ryan Williams of Alabama. They have these little nuances in their game that you don't expect from players this young. So that shows you Kaden Durham has really good football IQ for a young player. And he's just got a good feel for the game as he moves forward in his career.
Look, I'm just going to bring it up and ask you because I get labeled this anyway. Might as well feed into the beast at this current moment. Your thoughts on – look, let me start it off like this before I get killed. I thought Garrett looked pretty good. First half was pretty amazing, to be real with you, until the end of the first half. Carter, I hate the two interceptions. Horrible. I would have rathered him throw an interception where a guy just makes a really good play on it. That's not this. The decision-making has been porous. But other than that, dude played a pretty flawless game, man.
Yeah, so he sets his career high in passing yardage. And then obviously the two viral throws, Jordan Reed tweeted this out.
Mason Taylor throws NFL level.
Yeah, and the Aaron Anderson throw was also really good.
Yeah.
RPO throw to Kyron was very underrated. There was a DT right in his face, and he was able to get it up and down. And it wasn't like a simple RPO. You had to get it over the DT and then over the overhang linebacker. I mean, he really did some good things. I will say one thing that makes this a little bit different than South Carolina was there were a lot of turnover-worthy plays in that game, where in this game there were only a few. There was those two and then a few others that I would consider to be shaky. So the end of first half interception was bad. I think situationally, though, it's one of those things where he's trying to make a play and it's just a bad throw. He should have never thrown it. Now, the second, and I've been labeled like a big nuts defender. The second one, I will say, I thought Joe Sloan overall called a really good game. I didn't like the play design on the second one, but you still can't be late over the middle on the backside like that. And like the thing that really concerned me about that one is he got very, very, very casual. He's fading away, didn't need to. He had a really good pocket. I don't mind if QBs fade away when they throw the football, only if you need to, though. He really didn't need to. And, I just think he just had a lapse in judgment. He got a little too casual. The game was comfortably in hand, and that leads to bad habits. So that really concerned me more than the interception itself. And, Gary needs to stay on top of those things. But like you said, he's still playing really well. And Blake, I asked this question on Twitter, and I'll ask you right now. Outside of Jalen Milroe, who has played better in the SEC than Garrett Nussmeier to this point?
I don't know if you're putting me on the spot because I don't want to do like I did last time and people just get mad at me just throwing guys' names out. Okay.
Oh, however, so you don't have to answer. You don't have to.
I'm not going to. But I mean, was Garrett definitely up there? 100%. He's definitely up there. I'm tired of the bad decision making. Carter, this is something that's plagued him from the beginning. Has he gotten better in areas? 100%.
No.
1,000%. But Carter, I don't think people understand that. I mean, he's throwing it all over the place, and that's fine. Okay. However, you can't make these mistakes throughout the season. If you're going to do it against South Alabama, what leads me to believe you don't do it elsewhere? The best defense you saw, okay, in South Carolina, which is, I think they're the best in my opinion. They're 23rd in passing yards allowed. They're one of the best defensive lines in the country. Carter, that's what I'm talking about. Those are things that get you beat. And let me throw this out there too. You know why I'm so worried about it? Look at Carson Beck this week. Now, I get what you'd say. Oh, he might be better. He might be this. Those decisions lose you football games. Carter, this is how I'd label it. If I would have told you this time a week ago that there was going to be a half, you don't know which half, but there's going to be a half that LSU and South Alabama are tied at 7. Because that's what happened in the second half. They tied at 7. Okay? We would have really freaked out about what this team looks like. Just because it happened in the second half means nothing to me about that situation whatsoever. Before you came on, I came out here and said, I think that this team is on the cusp of being a playoff team because of the flashes that they show, Nussmeier included. He is showing flashes of one of the best quarterbacks in the country. However, you're not playing the level of opponents that you play down the stretch. You're not.
Yeah, so I'm actually in agreement with you, Blake. I think one of the more disappointing things of this entire season is how poorly LSU played in that second half, because this honestly was going to be the first full 4-quarter victory that LSU has had up to the season, where you can legitimately say both halves of football, they played really, 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 really well in all facets. I even said on my halftime show of the game, Blake, I was like, I'm so excited that we're about to see a second half domination. And the thing that was very concerning, and this is Garrett Nussmeier included, was the experienced guys that were getting burned and making mistakes. And I was like, that's not who you would expect. You would think it would be a lot of freshmen who are playing for the first time.
So stop right there. That's a culture problem for the players that you have that are upperclassmen. And that part of the culture has got to change. Either the young guys got to come in there and change it, or they got to change it for them damn selves.
Yeah, I mean, that's a game where you just want to just stomp them out. And look, Blake, I think one underrated aspect of all of this going into the game is how big of a factor it was that Kaden Durham did what they did versus them. Because I don't think South Alabama going into the game thought that they would be 14-0 down because of one person. It was one person. Now, were there other people that did well? Yeah, Mason Taylor's block, Kyle Parker's block, all those things. But it was mostly Kaden Durham, right, that did these really special things.
Right.
And South Alabama is not a team that is built to play from behind. So, yes, the LSU defense did a lot better job. And Ahmad Bro did some really good things fitting the run, and the defensive line overall did well. But South Alabama was really taken out of their game plan early because they underrated, and I think a lot of people at this point has underrated how good Kaden Durham is. So when you're up 14-0, that makes defense so much easier, especially a team that is shell-shocked in that moment, right?
100%.
So I think people tend to forget how much that helped the LSU defense, right? Because that essentially, when you're down 14-0, that takes Bothwell out of the game. It does. So the bottom line, Blake, is I'm still very concerned about the LSU defense. I am. One big positive, though, and once again, it's a one-game sample, is Greg Penn and Whit Weeks were phenomenal. They were freaking all over the place.
Against what was a top 10 rushing attack before you played.
Yeah, and once again, Kaden Durham helps with that, spotting a 14-point.
Yep.
But what South Alabama did a really good job of is they really made linebackers' jobs hell, right? Because you don't see many quarterbacks as fast as South Alabama at the G5 level. You don't see 220-pound freshman running backs like Fluff Bothwell. And they were non-factors. Greg Penn really orchestrated a really beautiful defensive performance. He deserved the game ball. And I like that Whit Weeks got the post-game interview. He did a lot of good things as well. Really pumped up about that, Blake. And those two guys, I mean, I'm excited about Debo Atkins. I think he'll eventually become a really good rotational player this year. That's how much I like him. But those two guys, if God forbid either one of them go down, the season's over. I mean, that's how good they played. And that's how, big of a drop-off it is if we can't have them. So
there's no defensive issues that we have right now that are worse than the turnovers that you're committing. Zero. It's not one. I don't care what anybody tells me. Carter, you cannot have those type of plays, brother. You can be worried about I'm worried about the defense just as much too. I think they play some really good offenses that are going to expose them. However, okay, what happens when you turn the ball over to those teams?
Oh, so I thought you're talking about LSU's turn. Okay, you're talking about LSU's offensive interceptions concern you more than the defense.
No, well, their turnovers, okay, are going to lead for that defense to get back out there. And I know it's a tough place to put Garrett in, but the one thing that you have to understand and know, you cannot turn the football over like that. Carter, that was as worse of decision-making as you can get. Now, the first one, I'm actually going to give him. The first one doesn't bother me at all. The first one, look, man, he got baited. Bottom line is the kid was a senior DB. He got baited by a 24-year-old. That's the God's honest truth. I'm going to call it what it is. The second one pisses me off. And because we continue, screw the play call. Live to fight another down. Throw the ball away. I don't think people right now fully understand when you make those bad mistakes, you know what happens? You go down to Alabama 28-0.
Yeah. So, and one thing I think really hurts Garrett Nussmeier, okay, and I'm very pro Nuss, is when every single one of your plays.
I am too. I don't want to be labeled the guy that I'm not, because I think he's exceptional in things that he does. I just want to, again, make that very well known because people hate me for this.
Yeah, okay. So this actually is one thing I think that really hurts Garrett Nussmeier is when he is playing quarterback, he plays the game as if every play is a failure if he does not throw the football.
1,000%.
Okay.
Bingo.
So what do I mean by that? I've shared this point plenty of times. Well, Garrett Nussmeier never gets sacked. He never gets sacked. Now, does it help that he has a really good offensive line and tight end when it comes to pass protection? It does. But the fact that you never, ever, ever get sacked is ridiculous. Pressure to sack ratio, all that stuff. That normally means you're a pretty good quarterback. But sometimes sacks are good. We want a sack, right? South Carolina game was a perfect example of that. Sometimes we want a sack. I'd
rather you take the sack that you were going to have than throw it in triple coverage. Don't. Carter, there's a strong possibility. All right, I just want to throw this out there. You should be 3-2 right now instead of 4-1. You should be.
Yeah.
But and that's the part that I'm trying to make, that I do think that you have the ability against Arkansas, against Ole Miss, against Florida, against A&M. Carter, you have the ability to beat them, and you are on the cusp of being a borderline, if not a playoff team. But the number one thing that will get you beat more than anything that the defense has done is those turnovers. So, it's the reason that it's the biggest stat. When you go look at a box score in a game you don't watch, if a team got blown out and the stats are about the same, what do you think? You go and look at turnovers.
Well, I Saints fans that this weekend.
So do you get my point?
No, I'm with you.
That's what I'm trying to. That's what irritates me more than anything. We got a couple of super chats in here, and then we'll get to the defense. Stephen Young with a $10 super chat says, I don't think that we're appreciating Durham enough. He's doing the same thing he did in high school, but he adjusted college play. Even when the O-line is pushed back, he gets yards. Your thoughts on that?
No, he's right on. I mean, and the to Stevens point, that was a point I was making a minute ago. Like, it's crazy that, like, you could go look at his high school tape. Like, it actually gets a little boring because it's just 80-yard bombs like every single time because he's just so much more faster than everyone. There's been no adjustment to having to pick up ugly yards. So you're getting some of the home run hitting mixed in with all these other things that some running backs, it takes, their first year in a pro football or second year in a pro football. It's just ridiculous how good he is at these little things. And Steven, thank you for your support of my channel.
Yeah.
And I'll say this as well. The one final thing on Nuss, before we go to the defensive side. All right. So it's not just, taking sacks. I don't want Garrett to take sacks. I want that to be known, but sometimes it's a good thing. Also, Blake, sometimes running is just a good thing. All right. So yes,
I got to ask this in the post-game show. Do you think he's scared to run?
A little, yes, because he's not the biggest guy, right? Especially if you waited for
Steven, who called into the show and asked, but
yeah. So you waited 4 full years to get this job, and we know how much Garrett loves LSU. I know his mother's ties and all that stuff to Louisiana and stuff like that. His ties to Louisiana as well. I think that's a concern. And look, Blake, sometimes it is concerning for me that every single Garrett Nussmeier play ends with a ball being thrown in play. So part of why the interceptions are so high is because in his mindset, he's thinking every single time I want to make a play. All right. When sometimes the best thing you can do is just scramble for 3 yards and fall down. Right. So perfect example of this.
You mean like his predecessor?
Yeah. Well, yes, but Jaden is just completely different. But
I get that. But there were times where the pocket was collapsing and Jaden knew, hey man, I'd rather take a 3-yard sack than a 7-yard sack. Sometimes you got to give up on a play.
Yeah, and honestly, the best who I have ever seen at that is actually Burrow, right?
No doubt.
Yeah, I mean,
no doubt.
The funny thing is, if you actually go back and look at the Clemson game was really won outside of Jamar Chase was Burrow avoiding huge 80-yard sacks. He was just dodging bullets. It really looked like the Matrix. How many unblocked blitzers Clemson had in that game, and Joe was just able to avoid them like they were nothing. And he will take a 3-yard sack compared to an 8-yard sack, and which
is massive.
Yeah, it's huge. It's huge.
Listen, I'll say it like this. Kalen DeBoer said this today, and I got to give him credit for it. Nothing means more to me than points. Nothing. And he said that. And people need to realize, and you know what he followed it up with? Nothing is bigger than turning the football over, and going for it on 4th down was my fault. He talked about them going for it on 4th down as an example was a problem in the sense of that they could have put the game away and pinned them deep and them not get back into the football game. And there's a reason it's called turnover on downs. I actually don't want to get to the defense. I want to ask you a different question if that's okay. But Stephen Young did say Witt is great, though, with a $2 super chat, 100%. He played phenomenal. Any thoughts on Witt very quickly?
Oh, he's phenomenal. Yeah, we can go on. I mean,
okay. So Carter, we're at a bye week. So for the first 5 weeks, let's just call it a little bit less than or a little bit more of a quarter of a season. Where do you see this team going? Projecting out, now that we've got 5 games under our belt, where do you see this team going for the rest of the year?
Yeah, this is big. So I'll make this point along with the Burrow point. When you play these tougher teams, I really do think when you play the elite of the elite defenses that are buttoned up, the Kane Womacs of the world, Coach Partridge and Ole Miss are going to be good, especially with Garrett Nussmeier. They're going to have a great game plan. You have to take some of these 4-yard runs and just get down, right? For instance, on the rollout to Kyle Parker, it was a target of Kyle Parker. Just run for 3 yards and take the yards that they're giving you, right? It was a low percentage target. Now, could it have been caught and could the throw have been absolutely perfect? Sure, but take those yards every now and then because it makes the defense have to respect you, and that's going to be so big, right? Because teams are going to scheme thinking, hey, we know the guy wants to throw. So outside of one, QB draw in the red zone, teams are still not going to expect you to scramble, even though if you've never scrambled per se. But Blake, I think you hammered everything correctly. LSU has a very real path to the playoff. Now, these are two completely different points. Is LSU a playoff caliber team? No, they are not a playoff caliber team. But you can be a non-playoff caliber team, but still make the playoff based on your circumstances, right? Michigan State's a good example of this in the 14 playoff. If things go your way and the schedule breaks go your way, well, that's what's happened to LSU this year. Blake, you do an SEC show. Congrats on the new SEC channel.
Oh, thank you.
Congrats to you on Joel.
At AYS-sports on SEC or AYS-sports-SEC.
So go subscribe. The most important thing is getting him to 1,000 subscribers. So please, I mean, there's 1,000 people that watch the show every week. So this is something that LSU fans need to comprehend, okay? There is a clear, level of difference of 4 teams in the SEC, and then there's everyone else, all right? There's Tennessee, Texas, Georgia, and Alabama, all right? Those 4 are way better football teams than everyone else, okay? We'll see how Ole Miss rebounds from here. We'll see what happens with Missouri. Missouri still has a very real path to the playoff with their schedule. Oklahoma's tricky.
They got A&M this week, their first road test. So.
Right. But would you agree that those 4 teams –
I agree that those 4 teams are the cream of the crop, yeah.
Right. And I think most people would expect before the season, including myself, that Ole Miss would be closer to those teams.
And they still might be.
They still might be, but their first real test, they did not look good.
Correct.
So before the season, this was my biggest point about LSU season. It wasn't about Garrett Nussmeier. It wasn't about Brian Kelly. It wasn't about anything. This was the easiest LSU schedule ever that I've ever seen in the modern era. This was the easiest. And you would have never
in SEC play.
Yeah, but also on top of that, UCLA just sucks. There's not a good football team.
Fair.
So not only is it easy, your toughest games, you're getting huge breaks, right? You're getting this huge bye week advantage over Ole Miss. You're getting a bye week before Alabama, and they have a bye as well, but that game's being played in Baton Rouge. And then Oklahoma is, not as good as anyone thought they would be offensively, but they're going to be good at the end of the season. They got to play Alabama the week before coming to Tiger Stadium. Y'all, the playoff is still very much a real possibility. Do I think LSU is going to get there, Blake? I do not. I think this team is just flawed enough to where they're going to find 2 losses here the rest of the way. And here's the thing. Most people immediately think those 2 losses are going to come against Ole Miss and Alabama. And
that's Ole Miss win. I feel like the fan base feels like that they should win it now.
Yes. But going into the season, most probably felt that those were going to be the 2 SEC losses.
I feel like the fan base feels, which I don't agree with.
Yes.
I feel like the fan base agrees with this. The only game that we should lose from here on out is Bama.
Right. They're better than you. I think they're
God heavens, yes.
I think they're a level. I didn't think it'd be a level, but they're a level above right now. And that's going to get me killed, but that's fine. What I will
we got to talk about reality and stop pussyfooting around.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what you're going to do with Ryan Williams. I don't know what you're going to do with Trey Harris. That's going to be the big question going into this bye week.
You take away Trey Harris, you might take away their offense.
True. And you can't necessarily say that about Alabama. But,
right.
What I would say, though, Blake, is things do set up nicely. I think they'll lose either one versus A&M or Arkansas. The back-to-back road thing sucks. They also have athletic freaks at quarterback, the dual-threat quarterback stuff, back-to-back road trips. Neither of those quarterbacks are that good, but it's tough, as you know, Blake, playing quarterbacks in back-to-back weeks.
But there's a strong path, because let me tell you why. Both of those quarterbacks, okay, Texas A&M is 116th in passing yards this year. They're awful throwing the football around. And Taylor Green, the 2 of the last 3 weeks, he's been below 50% in 2 of them, and he was below 60% in the last one. If you make that kid beat you by throwing the football, he's in trouble.
Oh, they're terrible throwers. I would be the first to admit that.
So again, Carter, there's another whole side of this argument where I'm like, shit, you can beat them. I think you're more talented than Carter outside of Ole Miss from a depth perspective. you're deeper, that's what she said, than any one of these teams that you play until Bama.
So let me ask you this. Do you how confident are you this team loses 2 more games?
About 75 to 80%.
Okay. That's about where I am. I might be a little bit.
I also, though, in all of this saying, I can see the path. Like, I can see the path of that being a possibility. Carter, you threw this out there. I'm about to get laughed out the building. You ready? You can't mess around with Vandy. You're going to beat Vandy. Okay. You can't mess around with Vandy.
All right, let's see. Vanderbilt has a bye week before they go to Baton Rouge.
I know. That's why I'm throwing it out there.
And think about it like this.
They're a really well-coached team. And look, you're going to beat them. You get what I'm saying. But the point that I'm making is that I have enough data at the current moment where I feel like, for me, that I can say you have a clear path of beating this team, and here's why. Outside of Bama, there's no other one.
Yeah, I haven't really thought about the Vandy game all that much. The Clark
somewhat tongue-in-cheek.
No, you shouldn't be, because one thing.
What if you play a half? Here's what I do know. Vandy's better than South Alabama, and here's what I do know. You went tied in a half against South Alabama.
All right, so there's a few things about the Vandy side of it that's interesting. So Pavia has already beaten a team on the road in a major upset. He did it last year, New Mexico State going into Auburn, right? And then, the bye week, the Clark Lee angle going up against Brian Kelly. And I don't know. I haven't really thought about that game, but maybe I should. Because look,
you can't discredit them.
And let's just say Tennessee is the freaking team and they're undefeated. Maybe Vanderbilt's like, okay, there's no way we're going to beat Tennessee. So let's really put the foot on the gas here versus LSU.
Here's what I also know. Clark Lee is going to want to get one on his former head coach.
Yeah, I mean, one and this was kind of anecdotal. So, Blake, as you know, the NFL channel for me is doing really well, and I do a lot of Jaden stuff. One thing that was very interesting, Blake, was like Cliff Kingsbury unloaded a lot of things in this game versus Arizona, like things that I had not seen yet.
I wonder why.
And I was like, holy shit, that's his former team. And I know a lot of people are like, no, duh, but like he unloaded the clip on them and he put the foot on the gas like the entire game. So I blew
that.
Okay, and then
I just emptied the clip. Sorry.
All right. One other thing is Tennessee on the road versus Oklahoma earlier this year. Josh Heupel, coaches versus their former mentors. They love to take it to them.
He let off the gas so much in that game too.
Yeah, he did. And
Dylan Sampson, dude. They just kept giving the ball to Sampson, a dude that we shouldn't have missed on. But
beast mode.
What do I know? All right, Carter, the Power Bryant, always fantastic. I'm gonna might try to get you on again this week, just in a different spot, different channel, and we'll talk about some stuff. All right, Carter, the Power Bryant. Thank you so much, sir.
Go Tigers.
All right. So I pretty much gave you my bold take anyway. That's how we're going to end the show. But I agree with Carter, man. You have the path where you can get there. Just only becomes, can you get there? That will be the question. Let me make sure I'm not leaving out any comments. Super chats here. We are not. All right. We'll see you tomorrow, man. Y'all have a good night. Go over to AYS. Go right now. Do me a favor right now. At AYS Sport or at AYS Sports /SEC. Go to YouTube, subscribe button, notification bell, all that stuff. You all know what to do. We'll see you tomorrow, man. Peace.